Welcome to Lean Thinking for a Sustainable World. Thank you all for joining us. In this session, you'll be hearing from Lean practitioners around the world who are passionate about this topic. We've been meeting on a regular basis to share our experiences, learn from each other, and learn how we can apply Lean thinking to sustainability. So in this session, in this 30 minutes, we'll be exploring the challenge, how Lean thinking can help, what this looks like in practice, and what you can do. So please use the chat function as we go for questions and comments, as we'll leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. Firstly, the challenge. We need to reduce our environmental impact, and the need is urgent and critical. Global warming has thrown up a challenge that threatens our very survival. COP26 has just wrapped up, and we still have a very big gap to close, as the image on the screen shows you. Here's a key metric, global emissions, and a target to keep average global temperature below 1.5 degrees C. So how can Lean thinking help close this gap? So system thinking and a scientific approach are the basis for Lean thinking. We balance both the social and the technical in the work that we do. At the work team level, how do we engage people to make their processes easier and better? Then at the organisation level, how do we align the work to the purpose and build value streams and management systems that enable improvement? At the customer level, how do we deliver value? You know, a real strength of Lean thinking is this focus on the downstream customer. However, we now need to add one more level that is both upstream and downstream of everything we do. The planet. As so beautifully expressed by one of our speakers, what does the planet value? Thank you for that one, Kelly. But with a problem so big and complex as climate change, how do we tackle this? Many of you will be familiar with Art Smaley's work on 4 types of problems. We have troubleshooting, type 1. The gap from standard is type 2. Target setting is type 3. And innovation is type 4. But climate change and biodiversity collapse are in a special category known as wicked problems due to their complexity and scale. One of the Nigels already talked about this in an earlier session. On this chart, they are at the top right and really off the scale. Like any problem, they need to be broken down into smaller pieces and tackled with all 4 of our problem-solving methods. Building capability in people to do this has never been more important. So I'm going to hand over to Marcelo to start breaking this challenge down for us. Over to you, Marcelo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Alistair. Well, one thing that it's really important to have in mind is the existence of a business case behind sustainability. We might often think sustainability activities as cost-generating activities. Sometimes it's not very easy to understand the business case behind them. Then we can start thinking about less transport, less energy usage, less water usage, that will definitely end up reducing costs for our companies. But some other really interesting feature is to start understanding also how the minds of people are shifting in terms of the importance of sustainability in our everyday lives and in what we do at our companies. So here we have 2 examples. One is a recent survey made a couple of months ago from Pew Research that was conducted in 17 advanced economies from North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And look how astonishing or impressive these statistics are, which tell us that 80% of the surveyed people are willing to make a lot of or some changes about how they live and work in order to reduce their effects in global climate. And we have a second example here, maybe a little bit older, but still valid. In 2008, a survey conducted by Con Incorporated in conjunction with the Boston College Center for Corporate Citizenship, they surveyed or interviewed about 1,000 adults, and 59% of them were actually concerned about their environmental impact of their consumption and were changing their buying habits in order to lessen their impact. So this, I think it's very important to notice this in terms of customer loyalty, but also in terms of new customers attraction. So here, this introduces us a huge opportunity to work on. Thank you very much. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I've had the chance to work at the intersection of lean operations and sustainability on some special projects with the amazing people at the Institut Lean France, as well as with Toyota in Europe and Japan. And more recently, I was working as a management consultant until having to take a COVID pivot, like so many of us, I'm sure, which is when I decided to start my own lean company, which is called KinFood. And KinFood is a subscription meal kit and cooking club featuring ingredients from farms and small producers within 100 miles of subscribers. And we currently have operations in 2 cities in the United States. And in this short case study, I just wanted to share how sustainability is truly at the heart of our strategic plan and how we've used A3 thinking and the Kata methodology to achieve some CO2 reduction goals. Next slide. So getting started. Now, there's been many sessions on Hoshin Conry in this conference, so hopefully you're all experts by now. But if you're not, here's just a quick overview. So Hoshin Conry is a framework that ensures strategic goals are clearly communicated and aligned at all levels of the company. And it wasn't developed at Toyota, but it's widely used by Toyota, something that I saw firsthand while working with Steve Hope at Toyota Europe. And it was just really incredible to see how Toyota integrates sustainability truly into their strategic goals and is their main driver for innovation and competitive advantage. So at its heart, I think the essence of Hoshin Conry is really ask you to take an honest look at your operations and say, you know, why do we exist and what type of world do we want? And this might seem really basic and obvious, but I think you'd be surprised at how many executives would say that they don't allow their own products or services to be allowed in their homes or to be consumed by their children. So there's still a long way to go in what and how we produce things. At the start of every year, we revisit our Hoshin Conry structure, which is similar to the format that you see here. And one thing that, you know, starting my own company was I was pretty adamant about wanting to do Hoshin Conry. And even though we only had 5 team members, it's still very important to do, especially even if you're just a solopreneur. It's something you should absolutely do. It's like your business partner. It will keep you focused and aligned to your principles and your strategic goals, something to fall back on when things get crazy. And I truly believe that, you know, all of us, no matter how big or small our companies, all can make a difference. And if we truly want to change everything, it's going to take all of us. So please do Hoshin Conry. It's the start of the new year. It's the perfect time to do it. The world is changing so fast. And I think if you're a small business, having a 5-year, 5 years out as your long-term objective is perfect. If you're like Toyota, you can do 30 years, but 5 years is great. And as you're thinking about integrating your sustainability goals, these long-term objectives should be other business management categories like operations, finance, marketing, etc. But also include sustainability as well as, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. And it's when you're thinking about how you can make an impact on the environment, it's kind of similar to that famous line from Anna Karenina that happy families are all alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own unique way. We all produce waste in our own unique way and have an impact on the environment in our own unique way that needs to be addressed in a unique way. And so for us, these were the three main areas where we were impacting our environment. So our carbon emissions, our landfill waste, and our ability to impact BIPOC women and LGBTQ plus businesses. And so those were our three primary goals in our 5-year objectives. Switch.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, it's actually we're still going through that case with Kelly's case.
There we go.
Yep.
Excellent. So for our 5-year objectives, even though we had 3, I'm only going to focus on 1 in this presentation. So it's the becoming CO2 neutral in 5 years. So we're into year 1 of our 5-year goal of being CO2 neutral. And so when we broke that into a 5-year plan, the goal for 2021 was to reduce our CO2 emissions by 40%. And we had 2 priorities or experiment kind of initiatives to do that. And one was to set up a transportation partnership, and the other was to optimize our delivery routes. And we chose those based on just looking kind of like the 80-20 rule, looking at where most of our waste was being produced. And when we looked back at 2021, most of our miles were from doing farm pickups, since we strive to operate in a lean pull one-piece flow system. Often our demand was out of sync with the farm's demand or production schedule. So the onus was on us to go pick things up. And so, driving out into the country multiple times a week was by far our number 1 source of carbon emissions. So that's really what we wanted to tackle. And in terms of KPIs, it's fairly straightforward. There's a correlation between mileage and carbon emissions, and we could easily track our mileage based on our delivery optimization software. So we had a pretty easy metric to track there. But in addition to that, we also wanted to track just the really traditional, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and morale production metrics, just to evaluate how that transportation partnership would go through the year. Next slide. So to do this, we really relied heavily on A3 thinking, but we used a kata format, which was an excellent example in the last presentation from Jacqueline. And we work with our hands, as you can see, our little kata board at the end of our production line there. So we needed something tangible that we could kind of easily, we could do, in the moment and talk about in our weekly huddle. So kata was really a perfect format for us all to learn from and for our production team to own. And there's 3 components. I won't go into this in detail. There's so many other great examples of kata and deep dives into kata, so you can watch those. But our target condition, like I explained before, was to reduce our carbon emissions by 40% from the year before. And our current condition was something that we tracked weekly. And we not only tracked our carbon emissions, but like I said, we were also tracking those quality metrics. And if one week we saw our carbon emissions, spike up in the data, under a current condition graph, we could do a deep dive and see, oh, well, it was because, the quality of our delivery partner that week who was going out to the farms for us to pick up the produce and goods that would be going into our weekly farm boxes. The quality wasn't great this week, so we had to make an additional trip. Or they forgot something from, 2 farms, and so we had to make 2 trips this week. And so by the end of the year, we're almost at the end of the year, but we can put a cost on quality in terms of emissions. So we know when something happens, what the price we pay in emissions for poor quality or poor delivery, et cetera, is. And, it's quite amazing when you track something on a weekly basis over a year, how that the number of insights that you can get, and that those are so actionable. And so this kata, this experiment, I guess the experimenting record has really been key for us to be able to make actionable and impactful changes. Next slide. So here is an experimenting record, and this is, I filled this in hindsight, of course. We had about 30 pages of these, so this is distilled down to kind of key highlights. But, lean is by design an iterative process that values learning above all else. And I think the biggest learning for our team was how easy it is to be swayed to take the easy road, or the easy way out. And perhaps this is true with all lean processes. Lean is hard. And I think that's the point. After doing it for some time, it's hard because it's forcing you to learn and to think outside the box. And, lean is a system. And when things work in unison and in a system, when you make a change in one place, it's going to have an impact in many other places as well. And it's true that sustainability goals often do conflict other business goals. That's why there is some resistance to sustainability efforts, because they can have an impact on cost, but that doesn't mean that they have to. It just means, that you need to experiment and find a solution. And for us specifically, sustainability had an impact on quality and our ability to source from a diverse set of farmers. So working with one delivery service was great. It was convenient. It saved significant carbon emissions, but it also resulted in some pretty severe quality problems for us, as well as very narrow set of farmers that we could work with. And so 2021 was full of trial and errors, but ultimately we didn't find a singular solution that worked. But we did find a hybrid model that worked. And so that's what we're going with at the moment, but there's definitely room for improvement to be made. And I think in a small business, when you're wearing so many different hats, you find a solution. When you find a solution that eases your burden, it's very tempting to just run with it. But that's why having a strategy and measuring these different KPIs that your envisioned future are so important. They keep you honest and they keep you hustling towards, that North Star and that future that you want, that you set out to create initially. Next slide. So just like any epic quest, it's the journey that counts. And there may never be one perfect solution. But even so, we were able to greatly surpass our goal. Our goal was a 40% reduction year over year, and we're down nearly 65% carbon emissions. So we are very excited about that, and are continuing to look for new ways and better ways to operate and get that number down to reach our goal of carbon neutral in the next couple of years. Just to part, I would like to say that, lean tools inherently reduce time and waste, which have a direct impact on the environment. It's a lean operation should, in theory, produce less waste and carbon emissions impact on the environment than a non-lean company. But there's still an island out there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that's 3 times the size of France, and made of plastic, and most of those things were purchased with our hard-earned money and could have been made in a very lean way. And so I think it's more than just using the lean tools to be green. You know, we really do have to be intentional, and we have to infuse sustainability into our strategic goals to create the kind of world and business that we want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. And I'm John Himelian calling in from Singapore. I'd like to take you on a little recap of our presentation so far. Alistair has really kind of reminded us that climate change presents us with a wicked problem, which is really going to require all the know-how and resources from the lean community. But we love a challenge, right? We love a problem to solve, and the planet helps, in a way, breathe new purpose into the lean community that I think is pretty exciting. All right. And Marcelo has shown us that there's a strong business case as well. You know, we used to think that we'd have to choose between, are we going to help the planet, or are we going to help profits, right? And now we can see it's actually a win-win. We don't have to choose. And by the way, it even improves employee satisfaction. And Kelly has provided us with a wonderful case study that shows that we can really make a difference. This is a tangible impact we can make even at our level, like she said, even an SME. So we love to see other case studies from all of you out there as well. All right. So in summary, you know, lean is a great enabler for green. I think we've shown that by now. But and there's a little bit of a but, right? First, we need to actually green lean. So what do we mean by that? Let's explore that a little bit on the next slide. So by greening lean, we mean, and this is what Kelly had mentioned as well, right? So use our existing lean methods, our practices, our tools, our concepts, but in a green way. So it's kind of like putting on a green lens into the things we're already doing, right? So let's measure, improve, and hopefully transform so that we can reduce our environmental impact. All right. And so we have things like Hoshin that we all know pretty well by now. Kelly has shown us how we can use Hoshin in a green way. We can actually start even just tracking, you know, we have safety, quality, delivery. Let's start doing environment, right? We can do that today. We don't even have to wait. She's also shown us how we can use kata and A3 thinking and really any problem solving or continuous improvement process to solve green problems. Right? And the value stream mapping, the tried and true value stream mapping tool, how can we use that in a green way? And as Alistair had mentioned, a systems plus thinking, you know, not just downstream, but also upstream. And we have a tool. So we have to go beyond our enterprise value stream mapping and maybe start using extended value stream mapping, which will truly get us to think end to end, because the planet doesn't really care, right, which silo the waste comes from. And the list goes on and on, right? So all these things, whether it's 5S or standard work, or even the way we do our Gemba walks with, you know, using a green lens as we observe and listen at the front line. How can we do all these things in a green way? And the resources that Bruno will share with us shortly actually will give us some hints on how we can exactly do that and accomplish that. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bruno. Take us away, Bruno.
Okay, thank you, John. I'm Bruno Battaglia from Brazil, and I'm here to make a call to action to all the lean practitioners. As we know, the need of thinking about the environment is global and urgent, but we have in our favor the fight against waste and the problem-solving methods spread by thousands of companies that share this lean vision. And for that reason, our community can and must be prepared to face this huge challenge. And with that in mind, we have started the compilation work, still in progress, to gather sources of interest, which aims to help in this journey towards greener lean. And we will put the link in the public chat so that everyone can access it. And we believe that together we can make the difference. And if you want to join us in this study and work group, please contact us through the Planet Lean in the link that will appear here on the screen and on the public chat with the subject Lean Sustainability. We believe that is just the beginning of something that, once again, can change the world. And now we go for a few minutes, I think 1 minute, for a Q&A session. Thank you very much.
So I'm not sure whether we've got any questions from the audience. We'll get some of those coming through. But I've got a question for you, Kelly, while we're waiting for some to come through. How did your team react to being engaged in the improvement activities? Did they find that fun?
They did. I think it was something that a lot of them had not been involved with before. And I think they enjoyed learning about, the business goals, and also just seeing a little bit behind the curtain of how strategic goals are created and tracked. And it almost became like a game, to see, especially when we were tracking it weekly. We were all kind of interested to see, how we would land that week in terms of our emissions goal or some of the other goals. So it was very enjoyable. I think everyone enjoyed participating. There was definitely no one seemed, hesitant to engage with it or participate with it.
Because the kata seemed like quite a simple approach for people to engage with.
It is simple. I think it's very intuitive and it's very visual. So I think it's very easy to grasp, just upon sight seeing.
And Kelly, we have one more question from the audience, probably just a quick one. Do we have a green balance scorecard to guide the host?
Alistair?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Alistair?
Yes.
Unfortunately, our time is up.
Okay.
So I will have to hold that question. So please take that question to the reception area of the event. And I believe your group there can continue. A lot of people are interested in the subject.
Yes.
So thank you, guys. Thank you about bringing this subject up.